pictures. Hello, everyone. Can somebody in the attendees or one of the students please indicate whether you can hear me or not? Thank you so much. Welcome to you all to this online course, Introduction to Data Science and Computational Thinking at the School for Data Science and Computational Thinking at Stellenbosch University. Thank you all for joining us. We prepared, a cracker of a course for you. It's a lot of material in 1 week, so you really have to concentrate. Dr. Klopper, who I'm going to introduce shortly, has put in a lot of effort. You would have seen the videos, you would have seen the PDF files. So please do take advantage of the course during this week. So I was looking at, yesterday at what typically these courses go for, and at other institutions they seem to be around 15,000 rands. We would have probably charged around 6,000 rands, but we are bringing this to you with no cost, and it's not often that we can do this. So I do ask that everybody here, participate fully during the week and get as much as you can during the week. Now, there are 1,000 students here, and about 1,050 people have registered on Zoom. But not everyone can make it every time, or some people will drop out. Therefore, we allowed more than 1,000 people, but we have a system constraint in that we can only allow for 1,000 participants at any one go. Please also note that sometimes it's difficult for me to reply to all your emails because there are many people emailing me at the same time. Let me also just give you some housekeeping rules, which is there is a part where you can click on Q&A and add any questions. Please don't share your video or unmute yourself. I'm not sure if you're able to or not, but you can ask questions in the Q&A session, and our tutor will help you with those questions. With that, let me introduce first the school, then Dr. Klopper and Mr. Engelbrecht, who are in the room with me today. So the School for Data Science and Computational Thinking was launched at Stellenbosch University in July 2019 with a vision to be a world-class institution in data science and computational thinking in and for Africa. And part of our mandate is to build capacity in the subject, not just at Stellenbosch University or South Africa, but across the continent, and in fact, across the world. As part of this, we are bringing this session to you, this week to you, to build capacity in this and give you really a good introductory lecture on the subject so that, one, you could use the material that is taught to you. Two, you can also build further knowledge on the subject by taking other courses, either offered at Stellenbosch University or through other institutions. If you visit our website, you will notice that we are offering more courses in the coming weeks. In fact, in middle of August and at the end of August, Dr. Klopper would be presenting 2 other courses on statistics and on deep learning. And you can find more information about those courses on our website. Without further ado, because we have a lot to cover in this one hour in terms of what you need to do. So I'm going to introduce first Mr. Engelbrecht, who's our tutor here. He will be answering your question. And he is currently a PhD student at Stellenbosch University. He is a specialist in machine learning. In fact, his master's degree was upgraded to a PhD. Hi, Emil. And secondly, and importantly, our lecturer today is Dr. Klopper, Dr. Jan Klopper. He has a medical degree from University of Free State and a master's in medicine specializing in surgery, cum laude from University of Pretoria. Dr. Klopper, as you have seen from my emails, has a deep interest in data science. He's a research associate at the school at the moment. He offers some of the best online courses on offer online through various online platforms. So without further ado, let me hand it over to Dr. Klopper. Jan, over to you. Thank you.
Morning. Now we shall find out whether there's some audio and video. Can you hear me? Anyone indicate that?
I can hear you.
Excellent. Well, good morning, everyone, or if you're joining from anywhere else in the world, it's a different time for you. Good morning. I hope it's not as cold as it is here with us this morning. And those of you who are local will know it's not, well, it was a nice weekend for us anyway, nice winter's weekend. So yes, very welcome. Welcome to the course. I really hope you enjoyed. First of all, thank you to the School for Data Science Computational Thinking, for Prof, for putting this on. Thank you so much. I think it's a great opportunity for all of us involved. As you've mentioned, yes, I've taught online for quite a long time, and data science is one of my many passions. And as much as I feel that it is extremely empowering, and I think for many of you on this course, it'll be the start of a very great journey. It is very empowering to be able to deal with your own data. There's so many questions that whirl in your mind. And for many of us, unfortunately, we let that go because we feel we're just not capable of analyzing that data or having some approach to that data, and being empowered to do it yourself or form teams that can work on this is just a great knowledge to have. And as I mentioned, very empowering. It's not easy just to pick up, certainly not in a week's time. And so this course was really developed just to start this journey off. It's I think of it, or most of it, as a reference. But during the week, I'm also going to show you where to go with Emil as well. We'll show you where to go to get results, because by next week you'll have more questions, and as you carry on in this journey, you'll have more and more. And we live, fortunately for all of us, in what I would my opinion would be that it's probably one of the greatest times on earth. So many things have changed, and I'm not talking about the pandemic. I'm talking about the last decade, maybe 2 decades. The world has fundamentally changed, and that's really brought about this idea of data science. There's so many tools available. It's really available to all of us. There's really been an enrichment of humanity brought by technology, and this is what we want to do. We want to embrace that, and we want to use that to solve so many of the problems that we have. So many of you are going to end up in a couple of years' time of contributing enormously to your field, if you haven't done so already, and solve and tackle so many of the problems that we do face. And it's this technology that empowers all of us to do it. And so I really hope you enjoy this week. There's no stress during this week. I want everyone to have fun and just put your hands to keyboard. There's only one way to do this. You'll see me make reference of spoken language. How do you learn to speak a new language? Well, it takes time and effort. And so it does with data science. You've got to practice, and you've got to start somewhere. And hopefully this week is an exciting start for you. Thank you so much to everyone for joining. I'm looking forward to the week.
Thank you, Dr. Klopper. I just want to say one last thing. This is brought to you by the School for Data Science and Computational Thinking, but it's also in partnership with the National Institute of Theoretical and Computational Science in South Africa. And some of you have been asking questions whether there's a certificate at the end of this, and yes, they will be providing an online certificate, an attendance certificate at the end of it. In order to earn your attendance certificate, you've got to participate fully during the week, and secondly, you must fill in a questionnaire/quiz, which we'll provide at the end of the week. Thanks. Jan, back to you.
Thank you very much. Perhaps we should get Emil to show and have a word or two.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm the machine learning tutor at the data science faculty at Stellenbosch at the moment. and I'm pretty much here to help everyone with code and kind of your mindsets behind doing the exercises, because it is going to be quite difficult, as Johan said. If you don't physically do this code, then you are not going to learn anything. So, for example, one of the courses that me and Kanchi were doing, we found that a lot of the students just looked at us doing code, and then when they were starting to ask to do code for the exams and the assignments, they had no idea what they were doing. So please do try it yourself, and it is going to be a struggle, but Google is your friend, and then I'm your friend. So do ask questions, and we can try and get through this together. And then during the live sessions as well, we'll be having conversations around the exercises and the kind of the idea and the mindset behind how you're supposed to think when you're doing data science, because data science is in itself a philosophy where you have to try and understand the data, and then the code is the tools that you use to analyze the data. So yeah, we're going to have quite fun conversations during the live sessions about exactly what we're doing, and then I'll be helping specifically with the code as well on the side. So please do ask questions, and I hope everyone enjoys the week.
Thank you, Emil. Kanchi, back to you.
So thanks, Emil. Thanks, Jan. Bruce, do you want to introduce yourself? Bruce is a professor here at Stellenbosch University. Okay, Bruce may not be there at the moment. Okay, so as I've mentioned earlier, the course is fully packed. So there are a couple of things that's been sent to you. One is a YouTube video on what to do for the, where to get all your resources, such as, installing or going to Colab, getting the zip file, etc. That's okay. Bruce is switching his headset. Thanks, Bruce. And Nanette, are you here?
Hi there. Yes, Kanchi, I am.
Hi. Do you want to introduce yourself? Nanette is a lecturer at Stellenbosch University. Nanette?
Yes. Hello. I'm a guest lecturer at Stellenbosch University in Group Decision Support Systems.
Cool. Thank you, Nanette. In fact, Nanette and the school has a project that we are trying to do with Thuli Madansela at the moment on the data science for social justice. Thanks, Nanette. Once Bruce comes, he can introduce himself. So what I want to say, yeah, so I've sent you a link to a YouTube video. Please watch that YouTube video, because that will tell you exactly what you need to do in terms of access to Google Colab, etc. Secondly, there is a zip file. If you can't get hold of the zip file for any reason, I know some people have been having difficulties, please check the chat room now. I'm going to paste a message, a link, and if you go to point number 5, you can download the zip file from there. And then, of course, there's the access to notes, etc., which you can find on a link also on that page. So there's 2 reasons for this session. One is for Jan to tell you what you need to do perhaps by 2 o'clock today. And the second one is for you to ask any questions before you start with the work. Jan, do you want to give them any inputs on what they should be doing between now and 2 o'clock?
Yes, indeed. There's quite a bit of work to do on day number 1. There's only 5 days, so you'll clearly see the instructions. I want to also urge you just to watch the video on YouTube, just to give you a bit more detail on those instructions. Today is actually not, there's a lot to do, but it's not going to be too difficult, in as much as the coding is just there to get you going. To get yourself familiar with Google Colab. And Google Colab, as I mentioned in the video, is quite easy to use. It's just like Google Docs, basically, other than the fact that you can also write lines of code in between your normal English text. And I think everyone will feel very familiar, feel instantly familiar when you just get going. But we are going to be around specifically this afternoon. This afternoon might not be the smoothest in as much as it is geared just to get everyone on board and just get a few lines of code written. And we'll hit the road much harder by tomorrow and Wednesday and in the week. Yes, with a bit of introduction to machine learning. As Conscious mentioned, we're doing a very separate course specifically on deep neural networks, on deep learning. That's in a separate course, but by the end of this week, I'm going to give you a full introduction as to how to approach a machine learning project and how we think about that and how that is quite different from what you might be used to in more inferential statistics kind of thinking way. So we look forward to seeing you this afternoon, and we'll hope to iron out everyone's Google Colab and get you coding.
I'm on mute. So some people are struggling to open the zip file through their Windows computers. Is there any advice anyone else can give in the chat room on how to do that? Because when I download the zip file and I click on it, it opens for me. So is anyone else struggling with opening the zip file? I also use Chrome browser, and then once I downloaded it, I went to my file explorer and just clicked on it. Okay, somebody here said you should download WinRAR, WINRAR, which you can of course search on Google and download it from there. Somebody said right click and save, and then open it. Somebody said download 7-zip, 7 the number ZIP, or WinRAR, which you can search for on Google and download and use that to what do you call it, to extract the files. I'm not sure how you do it on Linux, as I don't use Linux. Anyone else, could they give any information on Linux? So yeah, so it comes naturally on Windows 10. I'll wait for everyone who's struggling to now try download it again and let me know if you're still struggling. Right. Okay, for Linux, right click. Sorry, the chat function is just moving really fast. Linux, right click and select extract HERR, or select extract here, sorry. Right. So for Linux users, right click and select extract here. Hopefully that works.
Just as some advice for everyone, the specific chat goes by very quickly. So if you ask questions, you're probably going to miss it. So there is the Q&A part for asking questions, and we can answer that a lot easier.
I hope everybody heard what Emil said there. So there are 2 places where you can ask questions. One is the chat function and the other one is the Q&A function. Because the chat function moves through the chat quite fast, it's hard for us to keep up with it. Whereas if you ask in the Q&A, it lists out the questions quite neatly, and then we are able to answer it there. Right. So, okay. Okay, I'm just going through all the questions now. Okay, so I think for the people who have downloaded the file, you can go ahead and start doing the work, I presume. Right, Jan?
Yes, I see one more question there, and people saying how to open the files on a Colab file on Google. You have to right click on it, And at the bottom of the window that appears, there's a sort of more section, and then it has Colab listed as one of the programs with which you can open. So in many instances, you'll have to right-click on the file, go right down to the bottom, and on the more section, you'll find Colab listed there, and the file will open with Colab. For many systems, you can't just double-click on it. Let's see. Someone's asking how different is it to R. It's much easier. I think if R was the first language that you coded in, then R is not difficult. If it's your second language, or for many of us, it's a language way down the list in the order of learning new languages, R can be very esoteric. And there's a whole new philosophy, of course, in R, which is the tidyverse, which has a very different philosophy from base R. So it makes R quite difficult to get to know in that regard. And that is some of the issues that I tackle, because in one of the other courses that Kanchi mentioned, it is on biostatistics, and there I teach, it's a one-week course on the use of R in the world of healthcare and life science statistics. But I would certainly say that Python is a much more natural language, and I think that's one of the key reasons for its success in data science, is that a lot of it reads almost like an English sentence. So if you've never coded before and you want to start, then certainly Python would be one of the better languages to start off with. But very much they are on par. If you learn one language in that regard, it's much easier than spoken language. Once you start coding in one language, just the second one is easier, and the third one is even easier. And as Emil mentioned as well, the philosophy behind turning your ideas into lines of code, it's certainly something that you pick up, and then picking up new languages becomes easier.
Kanchi, we've got a couple of questions of whether if they miss any sessions, it'll affect certificates, or how will that be registered?
So they need to attend all sessions, all 5 lecture sessions from 2 to 4 p.m. And then, what do you call it? Then answer the questionnaire and or quiz at the end of the week, right? And the reason for that is, of course, one may then not come for any sessions and then claim a certificate, right? So we want you to at least come for the sessions. Thanks. Somebody asked, Pedri, hi Pedri, you asked about the schedule. It was sent on in an email, I think yesterday. Can you check that? Otherwise, I'll have to upload it onto the website and then send a link.
Someone's asking whether they should attempt the exercises. Yes, the exercises should be attempted before you start. This is very much a flipped classroom situation where you get the lectures beforehand. You get to watch the lectures in detail, and you can rewind and listen to me drone on and on and on over and over and over again. That's the pleasures of online teaching. So the lectures are there for you to watch, and for you then to start to attempt the exercises as well. I think that's a very important part. And then, as Kanchi mentioned, to get the certificate, yes, join the sessions, but I think it's to your benefit as well. It's one thing about data science is one of its successes also is collaboration, and that's where we form partnerships and we form part of a community. And what you'll find if you start in data science, the online community, when it comes to specifically Python, but then also R, Julia, which is the new kid on the block, which is a very exciting language from MIT and probably is one of the languages of the future. There's great communities online. It's on social media, it's everywhere, and it's becoming a very open and welcoming community online, and thousands of people. And it's just almost a social media way of approaching things, the data science community. And of course, for those of us who like to do things on our own, that's also completely possible. But most definitely, I think you'll get something from the sessions, and I urge you to attend those.
So somebody asked if they can't attend the live session, can they catch up before the next session? Yes, but it may take a while before we upload the video somewhere. I don't know how quickly Zoom sends the video links to us. Right. Rehma, I hope I've answered your question.
Perhaps I can also say there is the kind of 4 tiers of managing the afternoon sessions for questions. In some cases, I might ask the audience to come up with the answer, because we are going to discuss where you should go to look for answers to the problems that you have. In some cases, we're going to answer the questions directly, if that is informative to the whole group. But in the 4th instance, what I would really want to do is also for us to make a list of some of the bigger topics during the week. And it is really my plan to make a set of additional video lectures after this week is done to tackle some of the bigger questions that might arise during this week, to serve just as an extra resource for you. And of course, my line will always be open after this week to help you along with that journey, because that's really something that I'm passionate about, is to help people along on this journey and get them sort of fully functional in this data science community. So certainly, yeah, the plan is to make a couple of lectures available after the fact for those topics. And what we might also find during this week is that a group of people might be very interested in a subsection of what we are doing. And we certainly will think about making extra resources available for that. And another reason then to, to join the live sessions is to drive that process.
Jan, there's a question here. Somebody's not sure what exercises they need to attempt between now and 2 p.m. Could you answer that?
Yes, you'll see, I'm just going to open that. You'll see that there is the, just open that. I'm working on 2 screens, so if you can see my head bobbing left and right, left and right. If you want to answer another question while I just bring this up, can't you?
I'm typing in some answers as I'm going along.
So on the YouTube video that we mentioned, you'll see in the description section, there is also the list of what we cover every day. The first 2 topics, of course, the first one is just to introduce data science, and the second one, data definitions. Not only in data science do we learn a language, whether that be Python or R or Julia or what the case might be. But there's also, when you learn a new topic, it's all about learning a new language. And certainly the language of data science has its own set of definitions and pertaining to data. So there is definitely that session just to get you familiar with some of the major topics or the major definitions, keywords that we're going to use during the week. And then the section to attempt the coding session is the 3rd lecture then, which is on the Python language itself. So there is a notebook number 3, with exercise session number 3 as well. And that's the one that you have to start if this is your first coding session, start typing a bit of code inside of Python. So that will be for today, for Monday, is that worksheet.
Any form of submission for the exercises?
Not for today, and we'll address that during the course of the week, but certainly for today, you sit back and you open Colab and you start playing.
Am I right? The instructions on how to place all in the PDF file. Yeah.
Say that again, Conchu.
The instructions on how to play on Colab and what to play on Colab for today is all on the PDF files.
So you'll very much see that the lectures, the video lectures, form the structure of the PDF file, but those PDF files are actually just printouts of notebooks. So not only can you play around doing the exercise session, but the notebooks that are in the zip file, they're live files. You can start typing your own notes in between my notes. You can add new cells in which to write code to add to that notebook. That's very much an open notebook. You can play around with it. You can recreate it. You can make a copy of it and start adding your own things. And then, of course, in your zip file, the fresh one will always be there if you need to reinstall it. But the PDFs are printouts of the actual, very verbose notebook files. So everything, almost everything that I say, or in some instances more than what I just say in the video lectures, are written in those notebooks. So those PDFs and notebooks are the same thing, except, of course, for the notebooks, feel free to mess them up, add your own code, add your own cells, change the code that's in there. Just have a bit of fun today.
Okay, so some of you are asking where to get the videos and the notes, right? So I am going to paste a link onto the chat room just now. And if you go down in that link, okay, let me actually just paste it now. Can you open the link on that's found in the chat room? And if you come down the page, there is a heading called modules, and then it says introduction to data science, right? And then this says this module introduces the topic of data science and the tools that we use to do our analysis. At the end of the module, there is a short example project. You may either watch the video or read the accompanying PDF document. There is no exercise file in this module. So if you go to the video lecture link, there's a link there for the video lecture. And if you click here on the, if you click on the actual word here, you'll get to the notes, right? You'll see the second module, which is data and definition, down the page, has no video, but it has link for notes, right? The exercise file, Jan, where do they find that?
So in the zip file that you upload to your Google Drive, you'll see that there are 4, except for all the notebook files, there are also 4 folders there. One of the folders is exercise folder, and you'll see the solution set is also there. Because when you're introduced to this and you start to struggle, especially in the beginning, you might get a bit frustrated. And that's the last thing I want for you to experience during this week is a load of frustration. I want this to be an enjoyable section. So that one of the folders also a solution folder specifically to the exercises. And if you need to take a quick peek there just to get you along to the next question, you're certainly most welcome to do that. But one of the folders, if you open that, the exercise folder, there's a bunch of Python notebooks, of Jupyter notebooks, Colab notebooks. And if you open those will contain all the instructions. Those are the exercise files.
I'm answering as many questions as I can going on. How do I see there's a question, please, how do I download Colab? You don't download Colab. You watch the YouTube video that was sent to you, and that will tell you how to link to Colab.
Just a couple of notes from my side. So again, there is a lot of students, so it's going to be very difficult for one-on-one tutoring and answering every question. But one of the most important things to learn from coding, and every single coder will agree with this, is how to Google your problems and how to find solutions on Google. Because the beautiful thing about coding is someone has already most likely done what you want to do. And so there is forums called Stack Overflow online where people are answering every single coding question you have. So if you get an error, you can usually copy paste your error into Google, and then the solutions will come up. You need to just get used to the idea of not knowing the answer immediately, but trying to find the answer by Googling it. And so, yeah, that's going to be very helpful on the tutoring side, because it is going to be very difficult for me to, I'm not going to be able to do one-on-one tutoring with anyone, but I'll try and see which of the questions are more general, and then we can try and work through those questions during the live sessions.
Cool, thank you. Okay, so there's a couple of things that people are asking repeatedly, so I'm going to answer it live here. How do I get Colab? Please watch the YouTube video that was sent to you, and that will tell you how to get access to Colab. Secondly, somebody said they can't find the videos, lecture videos, and the notes. I just posted a link onto the chat room. I'm posting it again. That would give you all the links to the video, lecture videos, and the notes. right? There's an interesting question here, and I would like to know the answer to. This is to Dr. Klopper. What motivated you to get into data science?
Now this is going to be a 5-hour session suddenly. I think when you embark on a career in academia, sort of data and the information, the story that the data is trying to tell you becomes very important. You walk around, as you get more experience, questions about your field start knocking around in your head, and you want answers to those questions. And the answers to those questions are usually hidden in data. And if you gather enough data, that data will tell you a story, and you need to develop the tools to extract that story, that information, that knowledge that the data is hiding and trying to tell you. And that in itself is a very powerful thing, to see the answers to your questions that suddenly show itself to you. And not too long ago, that was a very difficult thing to do. We needed to consult for very trivial things. We needed to consult statisticians to get these trivial answers, but to the tools available to us today, it's really democratized our approach to data. And I think for me, that was really that answers to the questions that started popping up in my head, and how could I find the solutions to those, and then discovering this wonderful world of open science, open data, open tools, open source tools. And I might just mention a little bit about that. We do get proprietary software in data science. Those are usually extremely expensive, only available to universities. We're talking about products made by companies such as IBM, etc. But the world changed not too long ago in moving into this idea of open science, open source, and specifically open source software. So Python is completely open source, which means it's free of charge. Anyone can download it, anyone can learn how to use it. And it's the same for many other languages, such as R and such as Julia. And that has really empowered everyone. The barrier to entry has just come down quite a bit. And I think it's being part of that wonderful movement as well, to move, to empower, to move outside of the walls of some form of constraint because of finances, etc. It really allows all of us, and I think that's a very, very powerful thing, to allow all of us entry into this. And of course, there's rigor to this as well. One thing I think that will become clear during the course of the week, and hopefully it does shine through, and I want to just emphasize that as you go forward in your own career, is the analysis of data requires some rigor. And I think that's what the open source community has brought as well, because with some of the proprietary tools, your data analysis is basically the push of a button. What happens behind the scenes and whether that was done rigorously is usually hidden from you. Not so much in the open source world, not so much in the world of Python. When you analyze your data, there's some rigor to that analysis. There's assumptions that you must meet before you analyze your data in a certain way, before you tease out that information from that data. And that has to be very central to your data science career. And this idea of the scientific method, how we go about answering these questions that we have, there's a whole philosophy around that, and there's a whole process around that. And that very much has to do with rigor. And I hope that shines through during this week, that when you do embark on your data analysis, when you do start writing your reports and submitting your articles to journals, that your analysis is rigorous, that others can replicate your results, because that is a crisis that we just can't, should not have to deal with, the reproducibility crisis. And we might talk about that during the week as well, although that's not formally part of the course. But to analyze your data in such a way that it's quite rigorous, that anyone that follows your process can see why you decided to analyze your data in this way. Did you follow the steps? Did you meet the assumptions for the use of the tests that you are going to use? All those things are very important. So the question initially was, why did I do this? This is just an extremely exciting world. And I fail to see how anyone cannot be interested. And that's certainly, I think, in academia, there's a mindset that drives towards this, and the interest towards this. And that's, I think, why we're seeing this enormous interest. And yeah, so I think, yeah, I can talk about this for a long, long time, because there's also the great part of mathematics behind all of this. And certainly in the course on deep learning, if you're interested in that, that starts with the mathematics. We're going to do linear algebra and we're going to do calculus. That's how we start the course in deep learning, because there's a beauty in the rigor of the mathematics. I think that just is is a big draw card to many of us.
Thanks, Dr. Klopper. Somebody mentioned that I think Albert, you mentioned that in order to get to Colab, you need to have a Google account first. Is that what you said, Albert? Is that what you wanted me to tell the participants? So we need to be seated next to our computers for this. Yes. Yes, of course, you need to participate and you must undertake the, the practice material. Okay, so there's a good point. In order to get into Google Colab, you need to have a Google account, right? So create a Google account or through your Gmail account. So somebody said that they couldn't clearly see the here on the link. So I've added something so that you can see where to click on the notes page. Hopefully it works now. Let me just see if it works. Yes. Okay. Do we need to upload the files on Colab? How do we go about this? Do you want to answer that, Jan?
Yes, as the instructions say, there's the zip file that you have to unzip. And then when you open your Google Drive, just as you would upload any other file, you can basically drag the folder. When you unzip the zip file, it's going to produce a folder with the 4 subfolders and many files inside of it. But that whole folder, you just drag straight onto your Google Drive. So if you've got a Gmail account, you can basically go to drive.google.com and your Google Drive will open up. And in that root directory, you don't have to make new directories or fiddle with anything like that. You basically drag that folder that was unzipped straight onto your Google Drive. There's also a little button at the top where you can push and say upload, and then go on your folder structure on your computer, search for that folder, but you can basically drag and drop it right onto your Google Drive. Which I showed at the end of the YouTube video. Towards the end of the video, you'll see me physically do that.
Somebody says here, I've gone through the process of uploading the folder to Google Drive. However, after right-clicking a file, I'm not given the option to open it via Google Colab. I don't think that's how you can open it through Google Colab. You have to go into Google Colab and then open the file through that, right? Yeah.
No. So I'm just going to open my drive. Let's just open the drive.
Just to carry on the conversation of the beauty of data science, I think one of the things I realized while I'm doing my PhD here in the research space is that pretty much every single scientific field is working with data and using statistics on data. So from the social sciences, where you do surveys on groups of people, towards the physical sciences, where you collect physical properties of various things. You use data science on those collected data so that you can make some sort of conclusion. And I think data science is very much becoming a thing because of the need to have multi-collaborative science between all of these fields. It's very difficult when you're focusing on a specific field to also know what's happening in another field. And data science is trying to bridge that gap by saying, here's a study of just data so that we can have these tools spread to all of the fields available so that we can have considerably more multi-collaborative research, which is very important at the moment, especially in times like pandemics and socioeconomic crises and climate change and all that kind of stuff. So that's very much the beauty of data science from my side as well.
I just want to mention, if in the chat room, there's a link to those people who are in Eswatini. If you want to join up and have a chat together while you go through this course, please look at your chat room. Somebody asked, how can data science be used in medicine? For one, Professor Watson, who's here, and I are working on a project that determines that we're trying to determine what causes long COVID. That's an example. I know of people who are working on, getting machines to automatically look at X-rays and indicate whether something is wrong with the patient or not. Imagine if we could have something like that, then you don't have to have specialists at every clinic. You could have a machine making a decision if something is wrong or not, and then getting people the right help through a specialist, right? Rather than having the specialist spend time on looking at the X-rays, as an example. So there are multiple places where data science can be used in medicine.
Yes, maybe I can add to that as a surgeon. The course, for instance, on deep neural networks that Kanshu mentioned towards the end of August, that course ends where you have to design your neural network to make diagnosis on images of skin cancers. So the course provides you with a bunch of images. It teaches you how to write the deep neural network to train on those images to make a diagnosis from those pictures. And the course also has a section where you get medical information and you have to diagnose the existence of heart disease in a patient. You train a neural network to make that diagnosis. Yes, so from diagnosis to prognostication, the field of machine learning, specifically deep neural networks, but also other machine learning techniques such as random forests. And at the end of this course on Friday, I'll show you exactly how to design a neural network, a deep random forest to as a machine learning project. So certainly in healthcare, it is becoming more and more important. And one of my personal missions is to draw the health science community into this. As people with the domain knowledge, I think it's very important to get involved with, with this effort, which at the moment is driven by computer scientists, by mathematicians, and we need everyone's on board. So I very much want to emphasize what Emil had mentioned, the fact that the collaboration is key and the use of data in almost all fields. And I'll tell you just a little bit of history, of the start of this data science. And that is just this huge, enormous collection of data that was brought about by technology not too long ago. Data just started heaping up, and it's in fields really that had no academic drive, basically, that was sitting with this data. And I'm talking about the private sector with information about economics, with information about businesses, information about the driving of cars, suddenly had all this amount of data. And they started understanding that there is something to be done to take from the academics to start doing something, learn something from this data. And that was a great start and a great drive to this process. And as Emil then mentioned, the data science is everywhere. It is infiltrated in every sector, every academic, almost every academic endeavor. And it is this great democratization of the ability to analyze and work with data and find solutions from data that has brought about this fundamental shift, basically in less than a decade.
We have some other questions. This is to Dr. Klapper. What essentially does a data scientist do in an average workday? Also, how do data scientists differ from a computer scientist?
Oh, in many instances, this is a Venn diagram with lots of intersections. And I think there is not one true real data scientist. Data science, you'll find many definitions online, and you'll find many great debates about what a data scientist is. And in my mind, it is truly just an umbrella term for anyone who uses modern tools, what you are going to learn to use during the course of this week, to extract information from data. And many companies, though, are starting to advertise and are advertising for data scientists per se. That's the job description. And it'll vary from company to company. So if you get a job at Google or you get a job at Facebook, don't take that job, but that's a different story. You're going to get the title of data scientist, and depending on what the company is and what they're involved in, they might require something very different from you in two separate companies, or even within the same company, there's different data science teams. If I think about the healthcare sector in South Africa, some of the private healthcare companies that source instruments or some of the bigger healthcare companies themselves have data science teams. And those teams will have mathematicians, they'll have computer scientists, they'll have healthcare professionals, people from all sorts are part of that data science team, and they all bring something to that team. And I think that's something that's going to develop for you during this course of this week. You, personally, listening to me right now, you are going to bring something either to yourself or to some team. And that is what data science is all about. It is this union of very varied fields and very different people with very different backgrounds. And it almost today doesn't matter what that background is. You can learn some aspects at least of data science, and you can make your contribution.
What would you say, Yuan, about the discrepancy in industry these days of everyone trying to do data science, but everyone's struggling to do data science?
Yes. Today, to learn data science has become very easy. There are so many private companies that sprung up that'll take your money and try and teach you a bit of data science. And many of those are unfortunately without much rigor and without much oversight. So that has become a problem, and people will call themselves data scientists with very, with inappropriate background and inappropriate experience. And I think that's the great, the idea to bring together courses like this to give everyone a proper start and start a proper community and make people aware of the existence of proper communities to do data science. But once again, this field is so broad, and you are always going to find the outliers and the more difficult aspects of it. Can anyone see my screen? Am I sharing my screen or not?
No, I can only see your face.
Let me try and allow this to happen. Any luck now?
No, not yet.
Let's see. Let's click on Zoom. Yeah, I'll have to unfortunately restart this whole session. It won't allow. So for people still, struggling with that Google Colab thing, if you just Google the words Google and Colab, it'll bring you to a page. And please do that when you're already logged into your Google Drive. Log into your Google Drive first, and then just open a blank tab on your browser and just search the words Google and Colab and click on the first link that comes up. And that'll open Google Colaboratory. And sometimes you need to do that. And then if you go back to the folder that you uploaded and you right click on that, on one of the IPYNB files, one of the Colab files, it says open with when you right click on it. And then Google Colab will be in that list.
Here's a question from Francis. A bit of a lengthy scenario, but I watched the second YouTube link. It looked a little. Okay, Emil is answering that. Emil, can you actually answer it live so that other people who have the same problem may be able to solve it?
Sorry, what on the question is that?
Oh, there was a question that I thought you're answering, but it's disappeared now. Somebody was getting an error as they were running the code.
Yeah, so for example, as I said previously, it's going to be very difficult for me to help you with your code unless I can see your code. And then to see everybody's code is going to be very difficult as well. So please do, when there's an error on Python, we should actually go through this in a live session this afternoon. It's just to show everyone how errors work in Python. So when there's an error and you made a mistake on your code, the bottom, it becomes like a red box. Then the bottom text says exactly what the error is. For example, that person said there's a name error or something like that. Just copy that error into Google, and then you can try and find a link on Stack Overflow, and you should find some answer. But usually, most of the times it's syntax error, meaning you have a little space somewhere where there shouldn't be a space, or a comma where there shouldn't be a comma, and it actually shows you on the error what's wrong. So read the error, try and fix the error, because errors obviously happen all the time. You just need to get used to debugging your code, is what they call it. but I'm not too sure what a name error is. So for that person, please try and Google first. And then hopefully this afternoon, we can try and figure out how I can personally help on a more one-on-one basis with everyone's code. Dr. Ruan, someone asked just for some advice for this course. They said they love data, but they're anxious and nervous.
Not at all. That's the whole beauty of this week. There's absolutely no stress whatsoever. And it's natural to be to have trepidation when you start a new thing. But if you look around you, you know, so many people have taken up data science, and the reason for that is the tools such as Python and Google Colab that we're going to use here. By the way, I will also introduce you along the way to other ways to interact with the code. Google Colab is just one way because it makes it easy for us in a large environment like this to share the code and to get people coding and not be concerned about you having to install anything on your local system. But you can install Python on your local system. You can install a version of Colab, which is called Jupyter Notebooks, on your local system, and you don't need Google Colab at all. You can just run it all off of your own computer. So we might have a little chat about that as well. And then personally, on a day-to-day environment, I don't use Colab that much. There are other tools that make use of Python, which makes the coding also very easy, and perhaps during the afternoon sessions we'll introduce you to some of those if you want to do those local installs as well, and just use the tools there.
There's a good point somebody made here that you have to link your Google Colab to your Google Drive, right, Jan? I don't use.
Say again.
So you have to link your Google Colab to your Google Drive.
Yeah, so when you've opened your Google Drive for the, you know, in that so that you can open a Google Doc or whatever, then just open a new tab and say, just search for Google Colab, and the first link that will come up, just click on that link, and suddenly you'll have this overlay and a Google Colab file in the background. And then for some people, that is just the way that it works. In some cases, suddenly now when you right click on your on a Colab file that you've uploaded and you go open with, Google Colab will only appear then. This is one of those vagaries of how some things in Google are a bit inconsistent.
Great. So I think we are approaching our time. So what we're going to do is we're going to, I guess, stop with the live part of the session, but I'll stick around and answer any questions I can on opening Colab or any system questions that you might have, rather than any coding questions, which I will wait for the lecture later today to have Dr. Klopper answer those questions. Does that work, Jan and Emil?
Yeah, we can. I mean, we can stay on. Obviously, stay on a little bit more. I just want to see. I just see this question pop up. Do you need any kind of experience either in data science or in Python? Absolutely not. All you need is curiosity. That's all it takes.
And concentration.
Well, if you're having fun, the concentration is a nice byproduct.
There was somebody who asked me to send a link on because they're using their phone. Please check your emails that was sent yesterday. There's a link there. I will send out an email to everyone here as well again.
Can't you maybe, Emil, can you share what your screens perhaps, because I'll have to restart this whole system for me to be able to share mine, which I don't want to do right now.
I'm unfortunately on my phone for this session, so I'll have my laptop for the next one, but no.
Jan, I mean, I just restarted my computer in the last 2 minutes. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed that I disappeared for about 2 minutes. I don't know if
you were very sneaky about that one. I didn't see. But I'm using that sign on that you gave me just beforehand. So I'm a bit,
okay.
bit concerned to log off.
Sure.
Okay, I think if there's anyone who still by this afternoon can't log on, we'll definitely show you this afternoon by sharing the screen and doing all of that. And if it was absolutely impossible for you to do that little bit of coding that is required for today's exercises, definitely you will not be losing out. We'll definitely take it slow this afternoon. And for those last people who just can't get their Google Colab to open or Google Drive to open the Colab files, we'll definitely sort that out this afternoon. So you're not going to miss out too much. But please watch those videos or read the PDF files. I mean, they are mirror images of each other. And as I say, the PDF files are just the Colab notebooks themselves. So you have this range of opportunities to engage with the material in any way that you please.
And play around. The code is there to do anything, and you can, if you play around with the code, that's how you learn code. So just watching the video of someone else coding as is kept repeated in the video, you're not going to learn a language by that. So try it out for yourself and play around.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disappear again for 2 minutes and send everybody on the Zoom who's registered on Zoom link to both the registration page, where on point number 5 you can download the zip file, as well as the notes page, as well as the YouTube link. Mr. Nathaniel, if you go to the notes link, you will see the PDF files there. Mr. Mabuso, I'm currently studying a degree in accounting sciences. Will this course add value to me and probably make me competitive? Yes, it will do so. If you know about CA 2025, in fact, SICA, the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, are looking to incorporate digital, what do they call it? I forgot what they call it. Anyway, digital competency into their framework. So definitely you'll be one step ahead of both both the people who've already graduated with CA, as well as your colleagues or your fellow students.
I think that's an end for this morning session, but the panelists will stay behind for any last minute questions. So yeah, you guys can leave and then go and try out the exercises for the day.
Great. I hope everybody heard Emil there. This is the end of the live session, but we'll stay around and answer questions on the chat, not on the chat, on the Q&A, on the Q&A part of the Zoom or functionality of this on Zoom. I was talking about SICA earlier. It's called Digital Acumen. Okay, we'll keep on answering. If you have if no other questions, you may leave and start doing the work. Anonymous attendee, you asked about studying computer science. How do I integrate data science into my degree at Stellenbosch University? Please email me and I will tell you how to do that. There's a lot of data science courses we have here at Stellenbosch University.
Okay, 2 questions I'm going to answer quickly. One is, there are many ways in Python and many other computer languages to do something, and that is both a source of power and a source of great frustration. There are many times there are many ways to tackle a problem. There are different lines of code that you can write and you're going to get exactly the same result. And I want you to urge you, if you start playing with the notebooks, to find other ways to do it. And one of the most exciting things is to find errors in the code and errors in the notebook. That's always a great point of discussion. Find those errors in these in the code and in the notebooks. Those are always very exciting things to do. And the second question there was about Google's decision forests. Google Decision Forest is a new addition to TensorFlow, the deep neural network architecture that deals specifically with random forests and other ensemble techniques. It's brand new and it's based on a C++ library called Yggdrasil. And unfortunately, that C++ library has not been fully ported to Windows or Mac. So if you want to install it on a local machine, you will have to run that on a Linux machine or a virtual machine if you can manage that. But certainly that Yggdrasil library is still being ported specifically to Mac. I think they're further along the way with Windows. So if you don't have access to a Linux virtual machine, the only way that you are going to be able to access the new Decision Forest library is through Google Colab, because of course Google Colab runs on a Linux server backend, and so that C++ library is available in Python, in TensorFlow then, or in Decision Forest, the module of TensorFlow. So sorry, I'm being really technical here for those who are not too interested, but I see the question there. But certainly now you cannot, without great difficulty, I should say, you cannot install it on your local machine just yet. And that was another reason for me to use, just one of the many reasons to use Google Colab for this week, so that we do have access to that bleeding edge of machine learning. And that is that Google's Decision Forest. So unfortunately, no, you can't just install it on a Mac just yet. It's coming though.
Okay, so I'm going to disappear for 2 minutes and send everybody that email with the 3 links.
Emil, I see there was someone with one other solution to opening the files. It's Google Colab files. They uploaded it to their Google Drive and then they closed it off and signed in again to their Colab, and then it was available to them. So if anyone's still struggling, that's a good suggestion. Are you still around, Emil?
Yeah, I'm still here. Just going through the questions, trying to answer as many as I can. Someone's asking what the plan is for the 2 p.m. sessions. We're just going to work through some basic, as we said today, we'll go through some error checking and going through the exercises for the day and answering questions and just having a general discussion of the data science of that day.
Yeah, the afternoon sessions is pretty much going to be less formal and less constrained, in as much as we're going to impart a bit of philosophy, a bit of experience, have a bit of chat with you. So there's a question right at the end now about connecting to other files on your Google Drive. And that's most definitely part of the thing that you'll have to do. Of course, all your files now live somewhere on a Google server, far away from your computer, and you have to access those files even in a Google Drive. If you want to access a spreadsheet file to bring data in, which we'll show you, which of course will teach you how to do, you have to give that session that you open, the actual Google Colab file that you open, for security reasons, for your own account's sake, you have to give that file, that session that's running, as we say, you have to give it permission to read other files in your Google Drive. Otherwise, it will become a security nightmare. So we'll show you how to access other files, how to access the data, other data, so that if you want to do this yourself, if you want to upload a CSV file, a Microsoft Excel file to Google Drive, how you can allow this session that's open, when you open a Google Colab file, how to give that permission to read some of the other files and write to some of the other files on your Google Drive. You can also, by the way, you can also let this Google Notebook interact directly with files on your own computers. So you can just upload using some Python code without uploading the actual file to your Google Drive. It's still sitting on your local machine. You can import it right into that session of Google Colab, the file that's open at the moment, and use it that way as well. And of course, if you have a URL, Universal Resource Locator file, HTTPS file, link, then from the internet, you can, into a session like this, you can just import data that way as well. There are many ways to import data into a Python session.
There's a question that was asked twice now about qualitative research within data science. Do you have any comments on that? Because I'm not too sure what they mean, what's being asked there.
So there are great tools available. Some of them, of course, are proprietary when to get your qualitative data, whether that be from interviews or whatever the source of your qualitative data collection was, how to transform that into something that is analyzable. And there are tools. They, of course, are not as commonly used or perhaps as expanded as it is for quantitative data. But those tools certainly are available, and there are, of course, numerous ways to analyze qualitative data. In this course, we're going to concentrate just on quantitative data. We are going to, of course, bring categorical variables into it, and in the second section, where we just talk about data and definitions about data, there is this classification of data, how we classify data as either being numerical or categorical. And of course, nominal categorical data and even ordinal categorical data has nothing to do with numbers. It has to do with words, and there's a specific way that we analyze those. And of course, there are statistical tests such as the chi-square test for independence, Fisher's exact test, etc. that we analyze categorical data. But as far as pure or that analysis is concerned, yes, we're not going to concentrate on that during this week, but those tools definitely are available in the Python ecosystem.
So there's a question
I'll
from
send everybody a link to the YouTube video, to the notes, to the zip file, as well as attach the schedule for the week. The person who asked about the qualitative data, you should also just search on Google for something called natural language processing. It takes, for example, words and converts it into data that can then be analyzed using various data science methods. Sorry, Emil, you were going to say something and I jumped over you.
All good. There was just a question from someone asking, just in general, how can they use this course in their own field? And I think their field was energy economics. And I think this is very important while you're going through this entire week, is to, we're focusing on specific applications that tries to collaboratively have everyone do data science, but data obviously is specific to various fields. So while you're learning this code, while you're going through it, think about it on your own data. How would you be able to apply this stuff on your own data in your own field? And it's, for example, someone also asked about accounting. We aren't going to be able to teach you exactly how to do data science on accounting, but we can give you the basic foundations of data science, and then you can go and try and figure out how to do it on accounting and make millions if you get it right. So do always keep your mind on your own field while you're learning about data science.
It's very much so. We try to use I try to incorporate different types of data into the course, but a week is definitely not enough to get data from every faculty at the university and incorporate that. The mindset, though, and the tools that we use, that brings us all together as working on data science. But definitely the exciting bit of it is that, yeah, we all come with different domain experience. And that's the thing. If you're a domain expert, then you're in the most beautiful position to make use of data science, because now it's going to have meaning to you, and it's going to, it'll allow you to contribute to your field or answer the questions in your field. And that is the beauty of this tool that we're trying to, or that we're all trying to use a computer language such as Python. And that means no matter what your data, we can all make use of the same selection of tools to answer the questions that we're looking for.
There's a question: person who has qualification in stats, maths, and experience in data analysis, how to approach getting involved in data science. Part of it is just, practice, right? So you can, first of all, go through various online courses. This course will give you a really good start to go further. And practice on things like Kaggle, etc., and Zindi. which are platforms that have various data science problems, and you can actually win money through them. Secondly, you could of course do a whole program on data science, such as the postgraduate diploma in data science or the master's in data science offered at Stellenbosch University. Which platform? Zindi and Kaggle. I'll just write it down. It's in the chat room.
So someone asked, will statistics and algorithms be behind that are behind machine learning be touched upon? Certainly, I'll make a mention of that by Friday, but definitely if you want more of that, that will be in my course on deep neural networks. As I said, that course starts by exploring the linear algebra and the calculus behind the algorithms.
There's somebody who had, okay, I think it's been answered already. Okay. So we're down to 5 questions.
I'm going to try and approach this question of the SPSS straight to Statistica SS SAS. And I mentioned some of it to the open source versus the commercial. Depending on where you end up working, you know, you might be required to use some of those commercial tools. But I think very quickly, many of the large corporations, and that's really been driven by big tech companies in Silicon Valley, you know, they're not going to make use of those commercial tools. They are fully invested in an open source future. And I would really venture to say that a lot of the software, commercial software that we see today are not going to be available, you know, don't have a rosy future. And certainly to use the open source tools such as Python in data science is definitely the way forward. But it might very well be that the company is going to require you to have some knowledge of one of these proprietary systems.
Stephen, the course on deep neural network is at the end of August or beginning of September. Please check our website. All the courses are listed there. That'll be an interesting course. I'm looking forward to listening to that. Do we have a course for Hadoop? At the moment, we don't have a course for Hadoop. As we you know, start offering more and more courses, we'll start developing those kinds of courses. Right. As well as Apache.
There was a question on data wrangling. If you want to mention anything, there's not a lot of data wrangling in this course specifically.
No,
there's a little bit.
Yeah. So what we're pretty much going to do during an introduction to this field is have data that's very clean. But as you progress in data science, one thing that you'll learn very quickly is that cleaning up data or data wrangling, changing the data in some way is pretty much takes up the most of your time. And that is something that we're going to just highlight slightly, and that's the idea coming from R, the world of R, which is the idea of tidy data. And really, when you design the data collection tool, that's your one instance to interact and make a huge contribution just for that data to be captured in a proper way so that you don't have to struggle with the data wrangling. But certainly everything that's comes under that term data wrangling eventually takes up, is very important, takes up a large amount of your time, and that just making sure that there's consistency and correctness in the data that comes into your data analysis. If that's not the case, you are not going to get good answers from your data, and that becomes a hugely important thing. And maybe we should stress that during the course of the week.
And especially from my friends who finished their masters and went to the industry, they said pretty much very little data science can happen in most of the industry spaces because of how much data wrangling is actually necessary, because of how messy the data is and how impossible it is to use the data. And so most of the time, data scientists just get used to try and fix the data, but that's why all the startups are becoming considerably more popular for data scientists, because there you can build the data from the foundation up, so that you don't have to clean.
If you're involved in the designing the data capture tool, that is the place to be, because it's where you can have the most influence. If there's rubbish in, there's going to be rubbish out. And by that we mean, for those that are still around, if there's something wrong with the data that comes in, you're obviously not going to get proper results from that. But that is a huge source of frustration. Specifically, I've been an advisor for many doctoral and master's dissertations, and cleaning up data is a big deal.
Okay, seems like there aren't any questions anymore.
One last question. How much of your time as a data scientist spent cleaning up and preparing data versus building and training model?
80-20.
Yeah. So you deal with a lot of data, Emil. How much time do you spend cleaning up your data versus building model?
No, I've been too lazy to get into the real big data set, so I just use these research ones that are already clean, because I know how much of an effort it's going to be. But yeah, I'm very much trying to get, as Johan said, at the stage of designing the data capturing parts, so that you don't have to go through all this hassle. It's not even hassle, it's sometimes literally impossible to use the data because just of how it was collected. For example, a lot of industries started back in the 1980s, and the way they were collecting data back then, they didn't have in mind how it's supposed to be formatted and supposed to look, so that we can use the tools today. So that's where a lot of problems and a lot of money is going into right now, which they call the data pipeline. How you collect the data, how you pipeline it to the machine and all that kind of stuff. And to get that right and to have that last over many decades is very difficult, and that's where I'm more interested.
Of course, one of the big things that I always try and push is for us to use our own data. And I'm going to talk specifically about fields such as healthcare, but also the empowerment of people, the economics of businesses in your country, etc., is to train your models with local data. What we see so many times is data is trained on US data, on European data, and those models are not always applicable to our situation. And that's very much for me also part of this course, is to empower people so that we use our own data to solve our own problems.
This is specifically in the medical field where you're at, where they say that different hospitals should be using their own data in between, because then one model at one hospital is not going to work at another hospital.
Well, you have a deep interest in that, right? In the hospital data.
Me specifically, yes. I want to try and get all the public hospitals to start collecting their data so that they can start having their own machines to help out, because those are the areas.
We shall have a long offline discussion about that one, Emil.
Yes. And that's another part of this fourth industrial revolution that everyone's talking about, is this ability to meld the private and public sectors. I think it's a very important thing to do in the future. And to do that through data is going to be beautiful.
It certainly is exciting times and gives you great hope for the future. I must say, data science plays its part in this, all of this.
Dr. Bruce has his hand up.
Yeah, I got my my audio solved, but I see we're down to less than half of the people. So I just wanted to jump in on that data from hospitals and medical. It's you know, one of the things that that I've previously had a tangential involvement in is some of the devices, medical devices, and how they stream data. I mean, there's vast amounts that are collected. It's typically not appropriately archived, logged, and kept clean and fused with other data. So, you know, whether it's various scanners and of course human entered stuff, you know, it's a bit of a dog's breakfast, unfortunately, still, and that's maybe a global problem. So we'll see.
Yeah, there's certainly many institutions that are solving that problem. Unfortunately, it takes money. And if that's where you've got to spend your healthcare, your healthcare budget on the data collection part of the instrumentation that you have, for instance, in an intensive care unit, quite sophisticated monitoring apparatus, but the recording apparatus is sold separately. And, where you have resource constraints, those are usually not purchased. And, there's always the great feeling that the money is spent better elsewhere, which is not always true. And we can, obviously have that debate and encourage the fact that that is exactly what will solve the problem, is, spend on that kind of issue. But it's certainly always a bit difficult to look at those who have, if you don't have, and because there are certainly people making great strides in that field all over the world. It's it's still not universally available, or certainly not the norm. But there are people who really are doing that, and it's providing answers. It's providing answers in the healthcare setting that we would otherwise, going from bed to bed as clinicians, never know. And yet that data is just sitting there, it's just trying to tell us the solution, and we're just not looking there. So I greatly appreciate anyone working in that field.
And this also touches on the importance of collaborative data science, because it's very difficult for a machine learner to know what data to collect in an ICU. Instead, the doctor in the ICU should be the data scientist as well to try and collect the data there. Then obviously you're going to have some kind of a link between the machine learners and the doctors, but everyone has to be a data scientist for this to work.
Yeah. No, and that's the message during this week, is the domain expertise that people bring, whether that's from econometrics, whether that's from healthcare, whether that's from engineering. It's that domain expertise that is the final link. I've attended many machine learning conferences all over the world prior to the pandemic, of course. And it was always amazing to me how some units are so forward-looking that within healthcare departments in a hospital, they employ mathematicians and they employ computer scientists. It's beautiful to behold. And of course, our resource constraints here make that a bit difficult. But that's such a it's beautiful to behold, where you form these collaborative teams and everyone brings their expertise, and of course that has great benefit to society and to the people who make use of that service eventually.
Okay, so that pretty much puts us a half an hour overtime. Someone asked that the panelists join Discord, and I shall try and do that, because Discord is pretty much just a talking platform. So I can try and join on there to try and help out with everyone's code. But besides that, any last questions?
The last question is, what is the job market looking for data science in South Africa? It's looking great. So there's a government initiative from last year that where they want to provide data science skills to 1 million people by 2030. There's an indication of the demand that is going to be around for data scientists in South Africa. And this is not only unique to South Africa, it's everywhere in the world. So yeah, there's lots of jobs available. I know some big firms that have hired fresh graduates as senior data science analysts just because they can't get any data scientists.
Yeah, it's a very hot field, and it's actually, for example, people are very scared of people losing jobs over this fourth industrial revolution, and data science is definitely bridging that gap by making a lot of jobs as well.
Great. I see we've answered 151 questions just on the Q&A panel. And also, I guess, some of the chat room. I'm going to log out of here, and if there's, we'll see you later at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Henry, for creating the Discord link or providing the Discord link. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cool. See you guys this
Bye.
afternoon. Bye.
Cheers. Thanks.
Thanks. Cheers.